Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about using Naviter SeeYou to play back recorded flights. So a couple things we're going to talk about in this one are how to download and install the program. Once you have the program, how to configure it properly for good use with the ArcCadet program, including configuring display units to be something that we can identify with, as well as enabling satellite maps so we can have an accurate view of the airports we're flying at. And then we're going to go over some playback controls. In a separate video, I'll cover how to mark practice area boundaries. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to the Naviter website, which is just naviter.com. And once you're there, you can head over to the gliding tab and hit SeeYou. So there's a couple options here. If you just want to try out the program for a short period of time, you can download a free trial. The other option is you can buy the program outright. If you download the trial and then you buy the program, you can just put your registration information into the trial, and you'll just register the full program. So once you've bought the program or downloaded the program, you're going to get a couple emails. You get purchase confirmation here, and then you're going to get some information on where to get the program. So you can either follow the link that comes in your email, or you can head over to the website and download the trial version and then put your information in. So I'm just going to follow this link here. So it's a pretty small program. So you're going to find that it's going to install pretty quickly. Okay, so now we're going to open up the program. So first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to register my copy. You'll have to be connected to the internet for this to work. This program is constantly updating itself, so you'll see a lot of update messages pop up in the bottom right. So once your program is registered, or if you're just evaluating the trial version, this is your main window you're going to see. And a couple things you're going to want to do. If you're not storing your files on the cloud, you can get rid of that. And you can get rid of the photos pane down here at the bottom. And you'll see that a sample flight has been loaded into the program to start. So the first thing we're going to do is configure the program to display in the right units. So you can head up to the General tab here, and we'll do our distance in nautical miles, speed in miles per hour, altitude in feet, vertical speed in feet per minute, and wind in knots. We'll also change latitude and longitude to decimal degrees, and we'll come back to that when we start adding in practice area boundaries. So by default, the program is set up to use a very low resolution map when you're in 3D view, which is this button here. You'll be using 3D view for most of your playback. So I'm going to load in one of my flights here. So you can see the default view is just a very low resolution 2D map. So if we head over to 3D view here, you can see that we're probably going to want a little more detail. So to do that, we're going to head over to View, Show, and Satellite Maps. Depending on your internet connection, it might take a little while to download the satellite imagery. If you're on an older computer and you're finding that it's tending to run pretty slow, you can actually change the quality of the satellite maps. And to do that, you head over to Tools, Options, and in 3D view you can change the texture size. So the default is 2048. If you want higher quality maps, you can turn it up. If you want lower quality maps, you can turn it down. I'll leave it as the default for now. So you can see now that we are viewing a nicer quality satellite map of the airport. So to rotate the view, you just left click and drag, and you'll find that it should rotate the view. You can see now that we have our instruments displaying in the correct units. This vertical speed indicator will always say knots here, but if you really need the correct units, this section down here is going to have things like altitude, vario, ground speed, and that sort of stuff in the correct units. So I'll jump right into playback here. So first thing I'm probably going to do is change the color coding on these trails here. Right now they're set up to display altitude. So I'm going to set it so that it's going to display vertical speed. So when my vertical speed changes, you can really see that. So you can see orange on the way up, blue on the way down. So we're going to press play here. First thing we're going to do is choose what speed we're going to play at. If you play back in 1 times, it's going to be far too slow. 10 times is pretty good for just standard playback, and 20 times is pretty good for fast forwarding, but you can adjust that as much as you need it. So we're going to click the rewind button here, and then we're going to hit play. So the flight will commence, and you can start to play it back and use your left click to drag and rotate the view if you need to. If you need to change the zoom factor, you can use your scroll wheel on your mouse. And if you need to fast forward, we can just increase the speed that we're flying at here. So in this particular flight, we were held on tow, so we probably don't want to watch that in our playback here. So we're just going to fast forward for a little bit. So we'll set it back to 10x here. And at this point, the glider has released. So in this particular flight was a proficiency flight, so you can start to see the rate of descent increase on the stalls here. And in the future spins and spirals, you'll see the higher rate of descent as well. At any given time, if you want to view the information for each stage of the flight, you can use these jogging buttons here, and you can rewind. You can hold it down to rewind faster as well. So let's check what our rate of descent was detected as during this spin here. So it looks like the vario is indicating down around negative 4,000 feet per minute, which probably is incorrect. You do have to take some of these logging points with a grain of salt. You may want to take a bit of an average here. So if we want to fast forward towards the end of the flight here, we'll just increase the speed a bit. And we're entering the circuit, so we'll put it back to the normal playback speed. So we can view that our airspeed in the circuit here is somewhere around 50 miles an hour. We can note our rate of descent is anywhere around 400 feet per minute. And when it comes to a stop, it'll start replaying the flight all over again. So we'll move on to more of a kind of advanced feature here. If you want to compare multiple flights against each other, we'll find a couple flights here that are fairly similar to each other. So I'm going to pull up 3 different flights from the Pitt Meadows Airport. So I just selected these by holding Control and clicking them all at once. So now we can see that we're loading new terrain. We can now see that instead of one flight, there are 3 different flights here. Now the GPS is going to log things in the correct Zulu time, so if you hit play, these won't play back all at the same time. So if you do actually want to watch multiple flights being played back at the same time, we can head over there to animate on the top here, synchronization. And if we want to synchronize the flights so that they'll all start at the same takeoff time, we can hit takeoff here. So now when we head into our 3D view here, it's a new airport, so it's going to download some new information. So now we can see 3 different flights overlaid on top of each other. So if we hit play, and we want to choose the glider that we're watching, we can just click on each one down here, and it'll change the view to show that particular glider. Now the more flights you play back at a time, the slower the playback is going to be. So if it gets really choppy, you may want to reduce the number of flights that you're viewing. So we can see that these are the flight paths taken by these different aircraft. Actually, it was the same aircraft, just at different flight times. We can also change the view of the track. Right now it's set up to multiple flights, so each flight will get a different color. But if you do want to see things like rate of descent, you can set that for all of them as well. I'd recommend staying on the multiple flights view here. So you can see, because of the different durations in flight, the gliders landed at different times here. So if we wanted to, we could even set the synchronization so we could watch them all land at the same time. So you could set it to landing. And we'll rewind here. We're going to play it back a little faster. And with this setting, we should be able to see all 3 gliders in the circuit at the same time and compare the circuits to each other. Set it back to our normal playback speed. So now you can see that they're a little more synchronized in the circuit, and they should all have roughly the same landing time. Okay, thank you very much, and in the next video we'll cover how to mark custom practice areas.